Thank you for joining us to discuss fish consumption advisory for PFAS. My name is John Backus. I'm the program manager of the Field Services Program. My colleagues are the ones who perform fish tissue collections and develop fish consumption guidance for Maryland recreational anglers. Today, we're going to discuss fish consumption advisories for recreationally caught fish in Maryland. And I want to stop right after we get started to make a very important distinction about what Maryland does and what other folks do. Maryland has the responsibility of informing citizens about fish that are caught and consumed by recreational anglers. In contrast, FDA has purview over commercial fish harvest and their associated advisories. And it's an important distinction to make that between recreational and commercial fishermen, and that subsistence fishermen are likely to return to the same places over and over again and eat the same fish regularly, while commercial fish come from a much broader area and may not be representative or something that you're eating from the same place all the time like a recreational fisher person might do. So I'm going to remind you all to please hold your questions. We have about an hour, and I'm going to get through this presentation. And afterwards, we're asking you to put your questions in the chat box so that we have record of those, and that allows us to answer them easier. And we'll try to get to every question. In the event we run out of time, we'll follow up and answer everyone's questions that we may miss. But we will end this meeting at 6 p.m. sharp, if not before. And again, please mute yourself and wait until the end of the presentation for your questions. Next slide, Dave. So fish consumption advisories, they're neither good nor bad. When we collect fish, we create advisories for the species and the water body in which we collect it. And we create that advisory based on the levels of the contaminant or pollutant that we're looking at. When we collect more data at a particular area, we will update those advisories as needed, but we never take them away. We may either lower the recommended meals or raise them based on the data that we get. The advisories are geared towards the most vulnerable, women and children and subsistence fishermen. There are advisories in place in many areas and for many species for a variety of contaminants, and range from no limit, which in the case of Maryland, we use 8 meals per month. If you can eat more than 8 meals per month, we say no limit, all the way down to avoid, where we recommend do not eating. To give you some context, of all the advisories we have in Maryland, 94 of the advisories in Maryland recommend no limit. So what is PFAS? Well, PFAS isn't a thing, it is a group of things. It's a group of man-made chemicals that have been around for decades. There are so many uses and so many places where they've come from, and some folks know them as forever chemicals. You may have heard that. In our context, we will call them PFAS because there's plenty of other contaminants out there and pollutants that are persistent in the environment and in the human body, and they don't break it down easily over time. So things like PCBs, you're all aware of, they could be called forever chemicals too. But let's be specific, and we're going to group all of the PFAS that we talk about in PFAS. Later on, we may drill down a little bit to particular chemicals within that group. Uses of PFAS are, just to give you a quick rundown, are nonstick pans, textiles, fabric treatments for stain resistance, waterproofing. It's also in firefighting foams. It's literally everywhere. So what Maryland's goal here, multiple goals. We want to understand the risk of PFAS in the environment through our sampling. We want to communicate that risk. That's what we're doing here. And we want to reduce unacceptable risks. The risk posed by exposure to PFAS is an emerging and evolving national concern. Maryland has, for the last few years, had a very comprehensive monitoring strategy. In fact, I'd venture to say we are ahead of a lot of states in what we're doing. We began with drinking water, and nearly every state is collecting drinking water, surface water, soil, sewage, sludge, wastewater, and fish to determine the scope of the problem. Maryland's doing just that. So where can you find it? this graphic shows you several places you might find it. It's estimated that 20% of a person's exposure is from consuming drinking water. That leaves 80% from elsewhere. And most of it can be attributed to where you spend most of your time in your homes. There are thousands of items that contain these chemicals, including, like I said, nonstick cookware, even shampoo, pesticides, pizza boxes, all kinds of food container boxes, cleaning products. In this presentation, we're going to focus primarily on fish. And in that context, fish is a relatively smaller exposure risk, but not insignificant, and that's why we're here. There are more than 7,000 of these PFAS compounds, and about 40 of them can be measured. That number is increasing daily. But we'll provide you our monitoring strategy and our general advisories in this discussion. So next slide, please. So what are the health risks? Here's some health risks in this slide, and you can read that. But when we develop and issue our fish tissue consumption advisory recommendations, there are a lot of variables that are included in that analysis prior to coming up with the recommendations. And later you'll see an example of these consumption recommendations. Those come out as number of meals per month recommended, and they're very conservative. And so in a later slide as well, I will explain what I mean by very conservative. Next slide. So as I said, we've embarked on a comprehensive monitoring and sampling plan. We found elevated levels in some fish, not surprisingly, and in some areas, but not everywhere, and not in all fish. PFOS, that's one of the PFAS compounds, was the most common type of PFAS found and is driving our advisories. Crabs and oysters, for example, have low levels and no advisories currently. Maryland is using the CDC reference dose for calculating our advisory thresholds. It's a very small number, and I won't quote it to you. And using that reference dose, the upper advisory threshold limit that Maryland uses, and we use this for other pollutants, is 8 meals per month. If it's more than that, we say no advisory. As I said, we embarked on the sampling plan, the sampling strategy, and we have created some advisories based on that data. Of all of the meal recommendations we have in Maryland, PFAS now makes up only 16% of that total. The rest of those are based on PCBs and mercury, and so forth. Now, there are no advisory recommendations for any other PFAS compound other than PFOS at this time. So I had said to you that our advisories are very conservative. I'm going to read this to you. I'll walk you through it. I'll give you an example. If somebody were to eat, if we recommend 4 meals of catfish out of the Anacostia per month as a maximum, and a person were to eat slightly more than that, and they did that every week for 30 years, then they have an increased risk of 1 in 10,000 for having a negative health outcome due to that level of consumption. To put that into perspective, it's riskier to get in the car, it's riskier to smoke cigarettes or eat fatty foods, but it's a low risk, but the consequences are legitimate and significant. So again, this is over years of exposure. Some folks call it lifetime. I hope 30 years is less than a lifetime. And that risk value that gets calculated into the meals translates to in our case, in Maryland, a 1 in 10,000 chance of having a negative outcome due to that level of consumption. I hope that's clear. And later on, if somebody has more questions, put that in the chat and we'll try to address it. So this next slide here shows popular fishing locations. Our friends at DNR also gave us some fishing pressure idea. If you look there, anything that's red is a place where there's high fishing pressure. Green is low fishing pressure. Blue is where we don't have any data, and medium is somewhere in the middle. The orange. I'll give you an example. Just above the word Annapolis is Sandy Point State Park. It's red. And if you've ever driven over the Bay Bridge, there are people fishing off that jetty all the time in all weather conditions and also off the beach. So that would be considered a high fishing pressure area. I know lots of fish are caught there. These areas were targeted for monitoring, however, and been monitoring locations for over 40 years, which we call core stations. But we'll add to these as necessary based on the information we get from DNR. So the PFAS advisory locations are areas where we will have, this is a static map of what we will have online, and this shows that PFAS is everywhere and that there will be advisories pretty much all over the state. When this map is live, and we'll send links to where you'll be able to find that, you may click on one of those icons, and underneath it will open up potentially multiple species where we have. So if you see in there the mouth of the Chester, which in this case is like at 2 o'clock position above the P in Annapolis, there may be white perch, there may be catfish, there could be rockfish in that advisory. But what you'll be able to do is drill down and find out in the places you may like to fish what those advisories are and the recommendations that we provide. It's the fish species that we collected, and in most cases were pretty successful, are species that we know to be recreationally targeted and consumed fish by Maryland anglers. So that includes rockfish and crappie and white perch and bass and bluegill and so many others. And when we catch those fish, we only keep legal size fish to be representative of what is actually going to be caught and potentially taken home to be consumed. As I said, our sampling efforts began looking for oysters in the St. Mary's River watershed due to stakeholder concerns over water quality. And what we found at that time during that early sampling regime, and since then, oysters and crabs, we've collected crabs up and down the bay, is that they appear to have low levels of PFAS and are not of levels of concern currently, so there are no advisories for those, for neither crabs nor oysters, which is good news. So here in this next slide, we're going to give you an example, since rockfish is the state fish. It's one of the most commonly targeted and consumed fish in Maryland. We've been sampling for rockfish for many years. We have advisories for rockfish for PCBs. And we decided that obviously people consume rockfish. We want to know what it looks like in the fish tissue of rockfish. We found that in certain areas, rockfish did have higher levels of PFAS than in other areas. Now that said, rockfish move around a lot. They're migratory. Thus, historically, for our other advisories, we've only had areas where we broke it down at Atlantic Ocean, the Chesapeake and the tributaries, and in one area in the middle branch of the Patapsco, which had a resident population and slightly elevated over the rest of the striped bass that we see in Maryland. So 6 new locations were sampled for PFAS where there was no previous mercury or PCB data, and they do have some new advisories. And those advisories range from no limit recommendations to limiting to 1 meal per month for the most sensitive, a child population. But there are no major changes to our existing advisories. Here's a table of the kind of data that you'll see this is kind of a simple to read format. I'll give you an example of what our advisories tend to look like. In this top example, Choptank River at Gainey's Wharf, for the general population, that's men and women beyond childbearing age, no limit. Women can eat, according to our calculations, up to 8 meals per month and children 5. But if you look down at the Northeast River, we would recommend limiting your consumption to 3 meals per month for general population, 2 meals per month for women, and 1 meal per month for children. I think it's important, though, that we, as we tease through this data, and we'll probably collect more data. Hopefully, we'll be able to refine this. But it also, and we'll be looking for ideas from you all of what makes sense to make it easy to understand, so that people make a wise health decision for them and their families. That could mean maybe we simplify this into, like we have for PCBs in the Bay and Atlantic. So just an idea I've been thinking of today. So in this next slide, this is kind of how, this is our old school static map that we've had for years, and it is currently being updated. This is just the first page. Excuse me. This is the first page. And if you see in the left column, it shows common carp. The second column shows the water body. In this case, the top one is Anacostia, second one's Back River, Gunpowder River, and so forth. And the last three columns are the recommended meals per month. So if you see for common carp in the Anacostia and Back River, it's shaded red. Anytime it's shaded red, we would recommend avoiding consumption. But if you look down for flathead catfish in the Susquehanna, we show a no limit. It's shaded green. So then you've got everywhere in between from no limit, which is 8 or more meals per month, or above 8 meals per month, and then down to avoid, where we'd recommend less than or fewer than 1 meal per month. So this table does exist. It's being updated. I'm not sure if it's live yet. Somebody let me know, but this is the kind of thing where you could just look at it. It's probably, I don't know, 15 pages long now. But we've been doing this for a long time. So the next page here, one way we've been doing outreach with, next slide, Dave. We've been doing signs don't always work. Signs are sometimes vandalized, and that has been the issue with us around the harbor, for example. But Baltimore County, we've worked with where they have state parks in places where they can protect these signs. And these signs don't give all the information, but they do have a QR code that you can scan and link to our fish consumption advisory page and our mobile optimized site. So that's one option for us. I'm seeing from Dave here that all of the updated advisories and web features will be live on this Friday. So anyway, next slide here. We will have some mobile friendly mapping, like I mentioned. There will be hundreds of advisories for recreational fishing. There already are. And we'll be sharing map data through social media and applications. We're in the process of updating our website to reflect the new information advisories. Like Dave said, they'll be up on Friday when we issue a press release about the fish advisory you just heard about. A lot of these are already available. And right now you could probably look on your phone literally when you're on the water. That's kind of a cool thing. Or when you're on your couch deciding where you're going to go fishing and you want a fish meal, where should I go? That application will help you do that. Let's see. One thing we like to say, next slide, to folks is a common sense overall practice is to eat a variety of smaller fish, as smaller fish tend to have accumulated fewer contaminants over their short lifetime. The skin, the dark lateral lines, the belly fat tend to accumulate more contaminants, as is the case with PCBs. And anecdotally, I'm hearing that PFAS as well. So one way of mitigating that is grilling or broiling allows the fat to drip away. By preparing your fish right, by getting rid of that fatty tissue and skin, and then grilling and broiling. Now, it's not my favorite way, battered and fried, but for lots of reasons, it's not the best for you. So in summary, there's a lot of information here on this slide, but I think it's important because it conveys the overall thinking, the overall process that we've taken on over the last couple of years. And we have collected PFAS in fish across the state. And that is to update our existing fish consumption advisories. And we have done so. The results indicate that Maryland has elevated PFAS in some, but not all species of fish, and not everywhere in our waterways. We did find out that PFOS was identified at greater concentrations than other PFAS compounds, and they are the driver for our fish consumption advisories. Good news that we found is that crab and oyster concentrations in PFAS are below consumption screening criteria, and therefore no advisories are warranted. Great news. One note that I will say that PFAS is not the primary pollutant driving fish consumption advisory. That's mercury and PCBs. And our monitoring will continue, and we'll be updating our information as we get it. There are ways to contact us. One, I would encourage you to look at our website, mde.maryland.gov. If you have questions, or you think of questions, if we have questions we don't get to today, or you think of questions tonight as you're mulling over this fabulous presentation, you can reach out to Amy LaLiberty. Her email is there, and she and I and our colleagues will put our heads together and get back to you with an answer to your question, hopefully as soon as possible. So to that end, I know there's several questions that have popped up in the chat, and we're going to start from the first one. And I'll field those questions if somebody would just read them off to me, and then I will, if necessary, add them or answer them myself or ask somebody else to do so.
Thanks, John. My name is Dave Abrams, everybody. Good evening. I'm the Director of Communications for MDE, and I'm going to read through some of the questions in the chat, and I'll also try to field questions if you're on the phone, or if you want to raise your hand to ask a question, that's fine as well, and we'll try to get to all of them. So the first one, John, is from Michael. How was the 1 to 10,000 risk from PFAS consumption determined? Is any consideration given for other PFAS that could be ingested simultaneously with PFAS?
That's a great question. The 1 in 10,000 is based on EPA methodology. So we use that risk, and Amy might be able to help me out here in answering that question more precisely, but we use the 1 in 10,000 as what we determine as an acceptable risk. You could say 1 in 100,000 if you want to. Some states do. But keeping in mind the conservative nature of this and the variability in the data, we've chosen that 1 in 10,000. Now, what we do know is that PFAS tends to bioaccumulate. And so that was the main reason that we used PFAS in our advisories. It also showed up as being far and away the most common compound that we sampled. And I don't know how many different compounds we looked at. Amy might know that number, but it's close to 20, if not more. And so PFAS kind of rose to the top.
You're correct, John. This is Amy. We consistently looked at the main 18 PFAS compounds, but towards the end of the 3-year sampling timeline, we are closer to 24.
Okay, I will move on to the next question, and by all means, Michael, if we didn't quite answer it, certainly you can ask a follow-up. But the next one comes from Sean. Can you please tell us what amount of crabs and oysters test below? Is it 4 parts per million, or what level do they test at?
You're asking for the specific tissue concentration. Am I getting that right?
Are you, Sean, are you able to turn your mic on?
Yes. Thanks, John. Yeah, actually, that is what would be helpful to know. Because I was just thinking through. I mean, I see you're using a recommended meal amount.
Yeah.
And
yeah, there is a translation to that. Absolutely.
Right.
Amy, can you help me with that? I know we've looked at that. I haven't memorized that number. I think it is. You know what? I don't want to guess. If it helps, we can get back to you, Sean. That data we do have, and it's plugged into our formula where you can, if we say 8 meals per month, you would back that out to determine what that concentration actually is.
Got it. And that's what I was going to ask: are the actual test results posted somewhere that
the test results will be available? Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. So the one thing I should tell everyone, one of the things that we do, we don't just sample one fish. In a particular water body, we'll take 5 fish in a similar size class, and we'll take a piece of tissue from each one of those fish and analyze them together. So it's in a way you're averaging by doing one analysis, but we'll do that a couple times. And we'll also do that for different size classes. So for example, we had big catfish and small catfish. We'll take 5 small ones, 5 big ones, and we'll do that same analysis.
Okay, great.
I believe that, the sample size for oysters, to be clear, is 12 oysters.
All this talk of oysters is making me hungry, John.
I could go for an oyster or two.
So we have another question from, I think Michael, is it Ikniowski, I believe? Is any investigation carried out for point sources of PFAS when high levels are found across several fish species in a specific area?
Well, that is beyond the scope of this conversation, but I can tell you that our first advisories for PFAS came out, Amy, help me out, it was over a year ago, and it's in the Piscataway, and there is a known source. And so yes, but that was an obvious one. In other places, we have suspected sources, but that's another group. That would be another group looking at that, not the fish consumption group.
Aside from the Piscataway, no results that we've seen have come back so significantly high that we've done any intensive surveying or investigation for the source.
And like I said, we're collecting data from all sorts of media. So if we do get data, we'll definitely use that. I mean, ultimately mitigating PFAS and keeping it from getting into the waterways would be number one. So yeah, we would use data for that for sure.
Okay, I hope I didn't miss this, but Ty Ford is asking, what is the criteria for parts per trillion? I believe he's referring to is it the enforceable limit, John, that he's talking about?
That's the drinking water MCL, I believe.
Oh, right. Can you explain that a little bit?
I cannot explain that. I'm the wrong person to explain that. That is direct consumption. I'll try. That is the direct consumption of drinking water. And when you're consuming fish that are in water, it's probably not drinking water, it's surface waters. And so the translation is a little different. So we're using the CDC. It's called the health effects threshold. And that's a different number than the drinking water. It's a totally different pathway as well. If you like, Mr. Ford, I can, if you want to send us a message, I could forward it to our drinking water folks that are more versed on that. Happy to do that. You're muted, but I think I saw confirmation. I still can't hear you.
We have a few repeat question askers, so I'm gonna move forward there from some repeats, and I'll come back to you guys. I want to make sure everybody gets to ask a question. Richard Oakes says, did you monitor runoff from airfields where they have tested firefighting foam, such as Aberdeen Proving Ground, Andrews Air Force Base, Dahlgren, Chesapeake Beach, and St. Mary's?
We did not. Our scope was to collect surface water and fish that are in that surface water, not runoff. There are other programs in land management that are working on that.
Okay.
Some may even be on this call, but that'd be a conversation for another meeting.
I believe you already answered Upper Potomac River Keeper. Thanks for joining us. By the way, thanks to the river keepers and the watermen who have joined us. One of our main goals tonight was to, before there's coverage of what's going on in the media, that you all have a primer on the kind of information we're going to release. So thank you for joining us, so we can provide perspective to the data that's coming out. But you're asking when the sampling data will be available, and I believe the answer to that is Friday.
Amy, can you confirm or deny that? I think that's correct.
That is absolutely correct. We're shooting for Friday.
All right. Okay. Next question from
Dave, can I stop you, Dave, real quick? I have
Sure.
So the question from Mr. Ford, it's important to note that the MCL is for drinking water, and it's totally not related, but it's still important in informing the state what our PFAS burden is. And so that criteria obviously could change. There's been some proposals by EPA to have a different drinking water number, but it's different. It's as simple as that. Smaller, yeah.
Okay, next, I have a question here from Mr. Pat Elder, but perhaps it would be better if you could just turn on your mic and make your comment, because it's a lot to read. So are you able to turn on your microphone?
I have it on. Thanks for the opportunity, Dave.
Sure.
I can simplify it. You have an advisory right now that says that pregnant women can eat 3 largemouth basses from Piscataway Creek, and that fish has been shown to have an accumulation of 94,200 parts per trillion of PFOS alone in its fillet. Science will tell us that the life of the unborn child may be jeopardized even if that level is under 1 part per trillion. And I have tested crab and oyster and rockfish in my waters here in St. Inigo's Creek, and found extremely elevated levels, especially when you consider that the EPA's levels that are recommended in drinking water are, way under 1 part per trillion. So I question your entire methodology, and I also question your decision to only concentrate on PFOS and not the other several dozen chemicals that we believe are extremely harmful that are regularly found in fin fish and freshwater fish and oysters and crabs. Thanks for the opportunity there, Dave.
No, we appreciate the comment, Mr. Elder. We'll take your comments into consideration as we continue to try to improve our processes, but we do stand by the data that we've chosen and the science that we use to that is supported by EPA and CDC in determining our consumption advisories. But again, I appreciate your perspective, and we'll consider that in the future.
Thank you.
Mr. Lynch, I see your hand up. If you don't mind, I'm going to go to the next person since we've already fielded a question from you, but we'll come back to you. The next question we have is Ian Gilliland. For people who eat shellfish and finfish from the bay, it would be very informative to know what areas have point sources of PFAS and at what concentrations.
Not trying to be snarky, but that would be really good to know. It would be really good to know. And so we have looked at places like wastewater treatment plants. We have looked at, we do know where there are non-point sources in certain areas, but yeah, we're looking for those, and that would be super helpful. I agree with you. Now, what we haven't found, like Amy mentioned, is any abnormally in any area that we sampled, and we sampled all over the state. We did not note any particularly, I'll use the word hotspots, associated with any nearby point source. Can I remind everyone to mute themselves so there's no background noise? Thank you.
All right, Mr. Backwater Angler, I'm sure you have a name, and you also posted a fairly long question or comment. So if you wouldn't mind, if you could just unmute your microphone and go ahead and make your comment.
Hey, Dave, thanks. It's Theo Lagarde. I'm the Gunpowder River Keeper. And
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What was your name?
It's Theo Lagarde. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I serve as the Gunpowder River Keeper and cover the bush gunpowder bird through Middle River.
Oh, great. Thank you for joining us.
And the QR codes and mapping website for consumption is helpful, but it's likely not reaching subsistence fishers. They would benefit from having the data available in the fishing regs book. So I'd like MDE to explore that notice opportunity. Thank you.
So I can tell you, thanks, Theo. Good to see you. I would say now, assuming that subsistence fishers are getting a fishing license, they are provided access to where to find the fish consumption advisories that wouldn't be found on the mobile app. Now, that's also assumes that they have access to the internet. So That data that is available, but it's not available in hard copy. Now,
And-
if
and
somebody wanted that, they could call us,
that.
and we could give that to them if somebody were to call us and ask for it. I mean, we want that information to get out there, and it is very hard to reach subsistence fishers.
Yeah, that's a very common challenge for us in state government, and a lot of the best way is face to face to give that to start that information, and so we'll keep looking for better ways to do it. And that was another reason why we're really glad that the river keepers and the watermen are on this call, so that you can help us, spread the word and provide good information and context to folks, and we'll keep trying to improve what we're doing there and provide more outreach materials, and of course do that in Spanish as well.
Theo, I was just reminded by one of my colleagues that we're participating in a study with I haven't personally been, University of Maryland, to improve getting to subsistence fishers. So if you want to reach out to us separately, we could, I mean, if that's something you're interested in, happy to give you more information on that. Thanks, Kathy. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next question from Athena is the 4 parts per trillion for drinking water MCL standard a standard from MDE? I believe you addressed that already, but can you try that one again, John?
That is a drinking water. It's not a standard yet, but it is the premise of which we're going on. If there's somebody from the drinking water group on this call, or somebody knows better than me, I'd appreciate you chime in. I think it's a proposed rule, but it's not formalized yet, and it's from EPA.
There you go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. And if you want to drop your email in the chat, Athena, we'd be happy to get back to you with a more detailed answer.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Or I'm sorry, if you want to email Amy also, you could do that. You don't have to put your email in the chat for all of us. Let's go to Ira. I know you've had your hand up. Mr. May, can you turn your mic on and ask your question?
Well, I don't actually have a question. I'm from MDE, and we are in charge of the studies of point sources around the bay. So I just wanted everybody to know that there's a summary of what's going on at the federal facilities on our website. I don't want to steal the fish advisory section, but we have studies going on at all federal facilities at this moment, as well as multiple private sites. So check our website for the data, and if you have anything else, any other questions, feel free to email me, and we can give you more information.
Thank you, Ira. I'm sorry I didn't recognize the MDE label there, and I don't think we've met yet. So thank you for that. Good information. Let's see here. Mr. Is it Dreyer?
Yes, it's Dreyer. Yes, so I guess my question is, the references to the drinking water standard, I realize that that's a drinking water standard and it's coming from EPA. What it reflects, though, is the recognition in the scientific community and the health community that PFAS is tens of thousands more dangerous than they had expected, than they had thought when they issued the initial drinking water advisories, for example, drinking water standards. So, it's gone from parts per billion to parts per trillion. I guess, I don't know where the standards are that you're drawing for exposure on this, but I suspect that food consumption standards and the evaluation of risk with those is going to go through a similar revolution where scientists start saying that it's tens of thousands more dangerous than we thought. So I just, do you guys, you must follow the science, and I assume you have plans to stay up to date and to revise these. I mean, I just think they're tremendously lenient compared to what we see from Europe, for example.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, and we are staying on the science. Our group participates in not only EPA calls, but calls with other states that are working on the same thing and trying to tease out exactly what you're talking about. What I would say, one of the challenges is that we're finding that we are right at the detection limits. So I mean, those numbers are so small that they're hard to detect. And so just because you get a non-detect doesn't mean they're not there. And so that complicates it even more. So I expect that technology will improve as well. And hopefully it keeps up with the other science. One bit of good news, we did have a toxicologist that worked for MDE. Because I like to sprinkle a little sugar on this, is that blood levels in people appear to be generally in the United States going down. Now, that's a good thing. Don't know exactly what that means. Probably means that PFAS is not as ubiquitous and is not being manufactured as much. But I did buy a kitchen appliance not too long ago, and it has PFAS in it. Didn't know it when I bought it. So I'm saying it's out there still, but it's not like it was. I mean, Gore-Tex, for example, has come up with products that no longer have PFAS. And so we would expect those numbers to go down, but we also expect it to take a hell of a long time. So.
Thank you. I'm going to give you, I think, a pretty easy one here. Yes or no question for you, John. Do you have surface water data that accompanies all of the fish tissue data?
Yes. Yeah, we sure do.
Well done.
We paired that purposefully, and it did inform us that when you find higher levels in surface water, you do find higher levels in fish. Not always the case, but in PFAS it seems to be the case.
Excellent, thank you. And John, I'm gonna go ahead and take this one for you. Would it be possible to get a read-only copy of the slides following the meeting, the new guideline release? This is from, is it Marin Corasanti? Grateful for the opportunity to share these opportunities with my coworkers, the Southwest Road Riverkeeper. Shout out to Anne Arundel County, that's where I live. Thank you for your consideration. So yes, we're going to have lots of materials available for you at the conclusion of this meeting. Like I said, on Friday, there's going to be all kinds of new features on our website. We will certainly have access to this PowerPoint, and we will make that available for you. Matter of fact, I can probably share it at the end as long as I have the technical proficiency to do so. And we are recording this meeting, and we will post it on our YouTube page. So you'll also have an easy link to share with folks as well. So, but thank you for helping us get the word out. That's our goal.
Dave, just a time check. It's 5:45, so we got 15 minutes left.
Yep. So 15 minutes more, and lots of great questions. Thank you, everyone. And we'll be happy to, we want to try and answer all the questions. We'll see how it goes. So let me, without further ado, let me recognize the Upper Potomac Riverkeeper.
Thanks, Dave. Can you guys hear me fine?
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, great. So PFAS, yes, is a longer chain.
And what's your name, sir?
Brett Wallace, Upper Potomac Riverkeeper.
Oh, thank you, Bert. Appreciate it.
Yep. And so it's not really a question, it's more of a comment. PFAS obviously is a longer chain pollutant, and the other pollutants out there are shorter chains, but there's a lot of evidence in science that suggests that those have just as much issues with health concerns on people. My recommendation to MDE is to add all of the constituents that you've tested for and use the total number as a family and not just focus on PFAS. And I'm not sure if you did that, if that would alter some of the consumption advisories and adjust down to lower amounts of consumption. But that's my recommendation, and we really think that should be. Thank you.
Thanks, Brett. Appreciate that. We'll take that into consideration.
Okay, great. Thank you, Brett. Let's see. I don't see any hands raised at the moment. I'm going to go back to the chat again. There are some questions that we missed and some folks who are asking follow-up questions. I think I saw a question from Athena. Is there any data on caviar in the Chesapeake area? Am I getting that right?
Yes, just like fish eggs, if there's PFAS, if we've tested in those.
We did not test it in that. The only caviar I can imagine being eaten would be out of the sturgeon, and that would be a big no-no in Maryland. So no, it hasn't been tested.
How about shad roe?
Oh, shad roe, sure. No idea. I mean, we haven't tested it. I guess, do you know if people are consuming shad roe? I mean, I know it's a thing, but are people in Maryland doing it?
Well, I've done it for years and I've always enjoyed it. And I would be sad to find out that I couldn't throw a couple of shad roe in the pan with some bacon and make a meal out of it. So I think probably that's a typical way for it to be done. And if you go around to fish markets in the first quarter of every year when the shad are running, it's been my experience that it's pretty common to find them out there.
So a more immediate concern would be that bacon you're cooking it with. But probably it sounds terrific. You know what? We will consider that next time we don't collect shad typically. It's not commonly consumed. We do target those things that are more commonly consumed, but we will definitely consider that. Thank you for pointing that one out.
Yeah, we're getting a couple of comments in the chat about culinary exploits here. Good stuff. Tabitha says she's tested northern snakehead eggs, and they seem to have higher levels than muscle or liver tissues. So there you go. There's that.
Interesting.
We have a question from Mr. Tim Wheeler from the Bay Journal. Can you summarize how many new PFAS-related advisories for how many locations involving what different fish species? That's a mouthful. I think, John, you addressed most of that early on, but would you mind repeating that part?
I'm gonna kick that one to Amy, as she's more likely to have those numbers nearer to the top of her head than I am. I know that so Tim, if you see that one slide we had that showed all of the places where we have advisories, that is the complete list of sites, not the complete list of advisories, because there could be multiple advisories at one site. So Amy, do you have any light you can shed on that? I mean, that's something we could get back to you, if that helps.
Yeah, we can certainly get back to you on that, Tim. Is this the right slide, John, that we were talking about?
No, it's the map. It's the map that shows, keep going. That next one, that shows all of the areas where we have PFAS advisories. But again, under any one of those dots, there could be multiple advisories. So that would be for either different sizes of fish or different fish species. So I don't know.
Well, we have the benefit of talking to Tim quite frequently, so certainly Jay can get back to you on the details on that. And we have 10 minutes left. Let me see here. What testing method do you use to detect PFAS in fish?
We started out using a modified EPA 537, if that helps. I'm actually reading that. I didn't memorize that.
Yeah, that's a good one, John. That's fine.
Yeah, how about that? Amy helped me out with that one. The health department now uses 1633, which comes up with 24 different PFAS compounds.
Anything to add to that, Amy?
When we first started out this PFAS adventure, we had a hard time finding a lab that could test fish tissue. In fact, there were only 4. And so we went with one of those 4, and they used a modified 537. And that was proprietary information at the time. Now we are using the validated methodology for EPA 1633, and we're using the Maryland Department of Health laboratories, and that's who we'll be using moving forward.
And to tout the health department, they were part of that validation study. They are they're head and shoulders above a lot of folks when it comes to analysis for PFAS. They've got Dr. Sinissa Urban, and he's fantastic, and we're really lucky to have him when it comes to what we're trying to do in Maryland, not just for fish, but other media as well.
Thank you. So Marion again has a question. Is there a toolkit or an online resource bank for NGOs to share data and information and advisories? Again, we are releasing a lot of new information on Friday, and we already have a robust advisories, consumption advisories page. But absolutely, like I love the phrase toolkit. We're happy to help with that, and maybe you could review everything and get back to us. Any suggestions you have. We always want to improve our outreach, so we'd be more than happy to hear your feedback on that. Did I miss anything there, John? You wanted to mention?
No, that sounds good. Yeah, we'd love feedback. Absolutely.
Yep. Have you found evidence of increasing PFAS as you move up the food chain?
No, not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not. So we, for example, PCBs. You look at you expect it to be in catfish, and a lot larger amounts in larger fish and catfish, and it is. But for PFAS, we're seeing it more in the sunfish and not in the larger catfish in terms of body weight concentration. So it's that distinction has not been made yet for us anyway.
Great, thank you. We have 8 minutes left. I believe, or sorry, 7 minutes technically. I believe we've answered most, if not all, the questions in the chat. So I wanted to open it up if anyone wants to raise their hand and ask a question. And Sean, you're right on cue. So go ahead.
Thank you, Dave. Yeah, I just put it in the chat. So my question was, with the recommended meal amount, does that take into account the average amount of PFAS or PFAS already in population's bloodstream? Or I guess I was saying, just what, I guess a little more on the methodology of coming up with the recommended meal amount.
So if you like, if you're really interested in the methodology, I can give you some of the variables that go into that, like the body weight, the average body weight of a person, right? The meal size, so there's, and Amy is the expert on this. If you would like to reach out to her directly, she could give you that methodology and all the variables that go into making those calculations.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I'd recommend you just email Amy. She'll give it to you.
Yeah, Sean, if you email me, I have a link. We actually have our technical guidance document on our webpage, which goes into if you're ever, tired one night and can't sleep, it has the whole breakdown.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
So I did go ahead and post the link to our consumption advisory page. Again, just a reminder that we are updating this, and so you're not gonna find all of the tidbits and information that we gave you in this meeting. Again, that was on purpose to give everybody a preview before all the information goes live, because it's a lot and it's very complex and a lot of things to digest and understand. There's a little pun there, yeah. So feel free to go look around there, and we're going to update all this on Friday, and we're excited about the format of the presentation. We're going to have more on not just fish consumption, but also on PFAS in general. So hopefully you all find that helpful.
Brett, you have a question?
Yeah, just real quick. If we're planning on having some community meetings about PFAS, kind of like a PFAS 101, and talk about these fish advisories, would MDE be interested in being invited to that community meeting to say a few words about the fish consumption advisory process?
Yeah, I think that's something we could consider for sure.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, our target area is subsistence fishing and
Yeah.
environmental justice communities.
Okay.
You know, and so we're going to be working with community members to try and invite as many people as possible. It'd be great to have you there to fill in some questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question, because we definitely want to, find people where they are to convey the information. And this is a good time for a shameless plug that on our homepage we have an outreach calendar, and it doesn't have a ton of stuff for the month of December, but definitely want to encourage you. If you're a river keeper, you got an event, please let us know about it, and we would be very happy to put it on our calendar on our page. As long as it's free and open to the public, we want to do that. And maybe Lisa can drop the link into the chat. I hope I didn't call her out there. I think there's a way for you to submit a calendar request, but if not, definitely reach out to one of us, and we want to promote your events and help you be successful in getting the word out as well. So thank you for that.
You got 2 minutes, Dave.
All right, we're in the home stretch here. Would anyone like to ask another question before we wrap up? Mr. Ford, go right ahead.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All of this is much about the rivers in the bay. If I went over to Chincoteague Island and started pulling up oysters out there, would they have similar PFAS readings, or is the ocean, because of its size, etc., not as infected, if you will?
I think scientifically, we would expect it to be similar to what you find elsewhere in Maryland, fairly low. But without having those samples, I can't say definitively, but I would expect that they'd be pretty low.
Thank you.
Yep. That's
All
a great
right.
question. Good question to end on.
Very good. John, I'll turn it over to you for closing thoughts. Thanks everybody for joining us tonight. Really appreciate all the great questions, and we'll do our best to, keep getting the word out and answering questions you have offline. Please feel free to reach out to us. Lisa just posted the Google form for you to submit calendar items. Please do so. We're really excited about having a calendar that helps folks find out everything they need to know about environmental topics around the state, and hope it'll be a great resource for you.
Thanks, everyone. I know this is kind of maybe even an awkward time, but there was a nice group of you that attended, and I appreciate that because a lot of hard work has gone into that, and for people to want to hear it is kind of important. It's good for our ego as well, but it is important that people know about this and spread the word, because we can't do it all. But I encourage you again to reach out if there's questions that you have, things that just this is complicated, as Dave said, and we're glad to either email or get on a phone call with you and talk you through it. So anyway, with that, I thank you again, and you guys have a great night and a great holiday season.